It's not an official document and contains no accusations, yet a simple letter, written in Switzerland a few days ago and addressed to her children, is leaving everyone who reads it speechless. Because everyone expected anger. After the condemnation from Rome, after sanctions of a severity few remember, it was logical to expect a head-on clash. And yet, in that text, there's a word that keeps coming back. And it's not war, it's humiliation. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that word changes the meaning of the whole story, and why the sentence that follows has left even those who disagree with them speechless. Let's take a step back for those who miss the facts. On July 1st, the Society of St. Pius X consecrated 4 new bishops without the Pope's mandate. On July 2nd, Rome responded with a harsh decree, a schismatic act, excommunication for the 6 bishops involved, and sanctions extended to priests and some of the faithful. A severity, many say, without precedent. Since then, the Catholic world has been divided. Some have applauded Rome's resolve, while others have cried out injustice. And in the middle, thousands of confused and wounded faithful. It was in this climate that on July 19th, from the General House in Menzingen, the superior of the fraternity took up pen and paper and wrote to his followers. This isn't the first time he's done so. In the previous weeks, he had already written to the Pope in filial tones, asking to be blessed as sons. This second letter, however, comes after his response, and it has a completely different tone, no longer a request, but a consolation. The first thing that strikes you is the opening confession, not a proclamation, but the admission of a dashed hope. Until the last day, he writes, I hoped for a gesture of benevolence, or at least simple understanding, from the Holy See. Let's stop here, because it's a phrase that says a lot. It's not the language of someone who wanted to break things. It's the language of someone who waited until the very end for someone to open a door. And that door, from his perspective, didn't open. In its place came condemnation, with a harshness he himself describes as unprecedented. Then comes the central passage, the one that gives the whole thing its title. This completely unjust condemnation represents an immense humiliation for people whose only desire is to defend the true faith and work for the salvation of souls. 2 things in one sentence. First, the conviction is deemed completely unjust, and this, it must be made clear, is their position, not a final verdict. The second, even more interesting word is chosen to describe what they feel. Not persecution, not attack, humiliation. And humiliation, in the Christian vocabulary, is not just any word. It is the word of the Passion. It is what happens to those who are publicly humiliated and cannot defend themselves. Then the superior addresses the faithful directly, and his tone becomes almost paternal. The sanctions, he writes, are destined to affect you too, in a rather cruel way. And this is the point that few have noticed. That decree didn't just affect distant bishops, it affected priests, and it cast doubt on ordinary faithful, who now wonder whether they are committing a sin by going to Mass. For clarity, it should be noted that those who attend those Masses are not in themselves excommunicated. However, the decree provided for a case-by-case evaluation for those who formally share the Society's positions, and this was enough to sow uneasiness among many families. But then comes the sentence that changes everything, and here, the letter stops being a document and becomes something else. I want you to understand, he writes, that this profound humiliation, which affects first and foremost the members of the fraternity, has a meaning in the eyes of God that must not escape you. Let's reread it calmly. Humiliation is not presented as an injustice to be avenged, but as something meaningful before God. Not a wound to be displayed, an offering. And the superior draws the logical consequence. If the price to pay, to continue to guarantee the true faith and the true sacraments, is this humiliation, then that price must be paid. It's a complete reversal of the script. Everyone expected a legal counterattack, a standoff, perhaps a siege tone. Instead, the response is spiritual. It's the ancient logic of the cross. When you can't defend yourself, you offer. When you're humbled, you accept the humiliation and hand it over to God. It's the same path traveled by so many humbled and then recognized saints. The history of the Church is full of them. Padre Pio was removed from public ministry for years and regarded with suspicion. The Curé of Ars was mocked by his fellow friars. Sister Faustina was considered a visionary, all before being recognized, experienced humiliation. It's no coincidence that in recent days, many have noted the contrast between the tone of the sanctions and the tone of the response. Even those who completely disagree with the Society's positions have admitted that the letter was not the text of a resentful schismatic. But right here we need to be honest and give the other side of the story as well. It wouldn't be fair to tell just one side. Rome has its reasons, and they are not trivial ones. Consecrating bishops without the Pope's mandate is a very serious act, which strikes at the heart of the Church's unity and the very authority of Peter's successor. No one can decide on their own to ordain bishops for the good of the Church, bypassing those who lead that Church. If everyone did so, nothing would remain of Catholic unity. So what remains for us of this letter? Above all, there remains a lesson that applies to everyone well beyond this incident, that humiliation, when accepted and offered, ceases to be a defeat and becomes a strength. The Gospel teaches this, even before any press release. A final reminder to be cautious in judging. It's easy, from the outside, to apportion blame and right. It's much harder to remain faithful when you're publicly demeaned. And above all, a question remains for the entire Church. If people who claim to only want to preserve the faith and save souls feel humiliated, perhaps something in the way the matter was handled needs to be reconsidered. Because the history of the Church is full of wounds that healed only when someone, instead of raising their voice, bowed their head, and of condemnations that time has since revised. How it all ends will be revealed in the coming months and by the decision on that appeal. But that letter has already achieved one thing. It has shifted the game from the battlefield to the cross. And on that field, usually, the one who shouts loudest doesn't win. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.